Today on 7th Circle Gaming, we're discussing the game Disco Elysium. And we're going to start, as we always do, with full disclosures, but I'm not actually going to read it. Pause the video at this point if you want to read what it says. We are actually going to move right on to Immersion. The presentation of the game is isometric perspective. There is a story that the game attempts to immerse the player into its world with. It also employs very heavily statistics focus to immerse the player into the game world. Almost every item in the game has a lot of statistics to examine and attempt to optimize that have a massive effect on gameplay and what story elements that the player is going to see in their particular playthrough. The audio is particularly worthy of note. It is now fully narrated, so do make note of that, and the voice actor seem particularly suited to their roles. So it has earned for Immersion a score of 10 out of 15, and we are going to move right along to difficulty. And now for difficulty, the game has earned a 6 out of 15. There really is no traditional difficulty setting in the game. Player choices, like what items of clothing that they choose to put on their character or not to put on their character, is going to impact how far they progress through the story more than almost anything else. And on the other hand, the user interface does not seem to impact gameplay in any way. There's a lot of hints and a lot of helpers, so it has earned a 6 out of 15. So then let's move on, and we're going to talk about one little thing here. As far as difficulty, the archetype that the player chooses to adopt is going to impact the difficulty more than anything else, and the game comes with 3 archetypes by default that are pre-generated. It's also possible to generate your own character, but they fall into roughly the pre-generated characters fall into a very thinker, intellectual character, something more like a psychiatrist character, and then a bruiser. And which archetype the player chooses is going to impact how difficult or easy the game is more than anything else will. So then, we're going to move on to Lasting Appeal. Now, Lasting Appeal is a bit of a difficult kettle of fish. It's earned a 9 out of 15 because it's got the possibility of doing a challenge run. It has a possibility of doing a Paragon run or Renegade runs. Being the biggest jerk in the game world, or being the nicest person in the game world, in other words. There are a lot of creatively authored abilities to use and discover how they impact the gameplay, so it's got a fair amount of selections for player options that are going to drive interest in playing the game further. The comedy that we've spoken of a couple of times is largely satire and non sequiturs, and from what we found in our gameplay, the further away from that the game gets, and the more it becomes something more like a traditional police novel or a film noir, the less interest the player has in going on and continuing the story. So, with that, we come on to our final section, Final Analysis. In final analysis, the game has earned an above average score of 9 out of 15. The humor factor drives a lot of that, as does the creativity that the players can use as they go through the game, trying to uncover different story elements using different play styles and seeing how those affect the game. On the other hand, there is something of a hidden object game aspect to it. And a lot of that is going to come from the isometric perspective, because it does become something of a click on everything and see what it does. It is a very low action game in that this is not like some sort of looter shooter or military first person action game. It is more slow paced, and what we found is, in our own experience, when the comedy stops or when we get to a break, something that we might find satirical, the desire to play through the game really falls off quickly. So overall, the final analysis is a 9 out of 15. That's all I've got to say about Disco Elysium. And if you made it through the entire video, fantastic, congratulations, and do the YouTube things. And that really is all I've got to say for today. Goodbye.